You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. So Borderlands 2 has 6 classes or characters to choose from that have a wide variety of abilities. Some are good at melee or sniping, while others specialize with specific weapon elements. Today, I'd like to go over with you guys who I think is probably going to be the best class for beginners in Borderlands 2. Before we discuss the ins and outs of all the characters in Borderlands 2, it's important to mention that all of the characters in Borderlands 2 are quite good for single-player play. There isn't really a wrong or right choice when it comes to picking your character or class, as all of them can be very effective when given the proper gear and a good build. This goes from the very beginning of the game all the way up to OP8. With that said, I do feel that some characters or classes are simply easier to play than others. While some characters are okay or pretty good early on, these same characters can struggle in later parts of the game. It also depends on how far you plan on going in this game. Are you planning to just play through the first or second difficulty mode, or do you intend on playing all the way into Ultimate Vault Hunter mode on several different characters, and maybe even playing on some of the overpowered levels? One final thing that's important to consider, at least within the scope of this particular video, is what version of Borderlands 2 you have. If you're on PS4 or Xbox One and you've purchased the Handsome Collection, you should be good to go. However, if you're on PC, 360, or PS3, make sure you have the Game of the Year Edition and the Digistruct Peak add-on, as I will be talking about some things that may come from those versions of the game. After that, certain things like DLC heads and skins and the Headhunter packs are purely optional, and they aren't really going to affect this particular video that much. I also highly recommend that you upgrade to the latest patch dated to October 29th, 2015, as that is the most recent patch for Borderlands 2. Otherwise, some of the advice I'm going to give might not be valid for you. But with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. Borderlands 2 has 6 starter classes, 2 of which are DLC classes. From the base game, you have Axton the Commando, Maya the Siren, Zero the Assassin, and Salvador the Gunzerker. As for the DLC characters, you have Gaige the Necromancer, and you have Krieg the Psycho. Each of these specific characters has an action skill, which are as follows. Axton has the ability to deploy a turret, which can be used to aggro enemies, as well as deal some damage. Maya has her phase lock ability, which allows the player to temporarily suspend an enemy in the air for a short period of time. Zero has deception, which allows him to turn invisible for a short period of time. Salvador has his gunzerking ability, which allows him to dual-wield weapons while simultaneously regenerating ammo. Gaige has DEATHTRAP, which acts as an aggro source and can deal damage to enemies. And finally, there's KRIEG's BUZZAXE RAMPAGE, which greatly boosts melee damage and allows you to regain all of your health upon scoring a kill. If you're curious about whose action scales the best as you play through the game, I would go ahead and say that it's probably Salvador's gunzerking ability. The ability to dual-wield weapons gives Salvador some crazy advantages much later on, once you acquire more higher-quality weapons. Salvador can greatly benefit from passive weapon effects, which allows him to both heal and deal ridiculous amounts of damage. I would say if you ever plan on doing any raid boss kills, Salvador the Gunzerker is probably the best choice for this reason. With that said, I think you'll find that KRIEG's BUZZAXE RAMPAGE can be quite powerful throughout all stages of the game, provided you have the proper build and gear to go along with it. So it's sort of the same thing. What I do think is worth mentioning is that it is possible to play through the game on KRIEG without using any weapons. Now, granted, certain sections of the game will be kind of hard because you have to hit things from a distance, but, I mean, it's possible to do, and because of the way BUZZAXE RAMPAGE works, it's actually quite effective, and it's a fun challenge if you ever want to try it. But I digress. As far as the lowest cooldown duration, I would say that Maya and Zero win in that particular area. Maya's phase lock has limitations though, as some enemies in later difficulties can't be phase locked. However, these are usually just massive enemies as opposed to large swaths of normal enemies, so I would say it's not really anything to be seriously worried about. As far as Zero's action skill is concerned, turning invisible is always going to be useful in a wide variety of situations. Now, Axton and Gauge's action skills are perfect for aggro or distracting enemies, and this can be really useful throughout the game if you have trouble in single player mode. Plus, if you're playing online with other people, you can either summon DEATHTRAP or throw your turret as a means of support. Speaking of support, I would say that GAIGE and Axton are probably best for beginners that have never really played a first-person shooter before. Between the two characters, I would say that Axton is a little more defensive-based, while GAIGE is more offensive-based. At higher skill levels, GAIGE has higher damage potential, however Axton has much more survival potential. Just like we discussed previously, both of these characters have action skills that require little to no effort in order to be effective. Axton's turret will usually just auto-target enemies, while Gauge's DEATHTRAP will do something pretty similar. Both characters have skills that can boost the effectiveness of their action skills too. For Axton, I'd say it's essential to pick up skills like SENTRY and SCORCHED Earth. SENTRY will increase the amount of time your turrets can stay out, while SCORCHED Earth's rockets will make short work of most enemies. And this is all without good aim. What some of you may have never realized is that Gauge's Best Friends Forever tree was designed to benefit players that are new to FPS games. Skills like Close Enough allow some of your shots to hit enemies regardless of where you aim. Buck Up allows DEATHTRAP to restore your shield or a friend shield if you're playing in multiplayer, and Upshot Robot can increase the amount of time that DEATHTRAP is active, provided that you're getting kills. Keep in mind, if DEATHTRAP gets kills with Upshot Robot, this also increases your DEATHTRAP uptime. Between Axton and GAIGE, I'd say that GAIGE tends to fare a little bit better later on in the game, simply thanks to her ordered chaos tree. Anarchy is a skill or a mechanic that allows the player to gain stacks of anarchy, which increase damage while decreasing accuracy and magazine size. However, if you reload, you lose all of your stacks unless you've spec'd for Gauge's Discord skill, which will allow you to heal and also increase your accuracy. In general though, ordered chaos is great for when you get more advanced at the game, provided you can quickly get kills. Skills like blood-soaked shields are far superior to skills like Buck Up or fancy mathematics. When blood-soaked shield is maxed out, you will regain 100% shield capacity upon killing an enemy at the expense of a little health. Other skills like the Nth Degree work really well when combined with Close Enough on shotguns, as you're almost guaranteed to hit enemies even with high anarchy. As for Axton, Axton's survival tree has its advantages. Axton's Grit allows the player to simply ignore damage that would otherwise put them into fight for your life. Preparation is nice for generating shields in between fights, and Resourceful will decrease your action skill cooldown, allowing you to redeploy your turrets faster. However, it is worth mentioning that GEMINI, which is the survival tree's capstone skill, allows you to deploy 2 turrets, which is excellent for crowd control. And Axton is probably more support focused than GAIGE is. However, both characters fare pretty well in this particular area. In my opinion, I like Axton more, but GAIGE is really a great choice. Since the most recent official patch for Borderlands 2, I would go ahead and say that if you're experienced with FPS type games, I would highly recommend that you play Maya. And this is because of one skill in particular called Cloud Kill. Now originally, Cloud Kill was one of the worst skills in this game. However, Gearbox buffed it in one of the most recent patches for Borderlands 2. So now, not only is Cloud Kill useful, if not overpowered in normal mode, but it's effective in the game's highest difficulties as well. And what's also nice about Cloud Kill is that the damage that Cloud Kill deals scales with the level of your character. With proper skill point investment, you should be able to have Cloud Kill by level 16, and at this point in the game, you're going to start to encounter more and more armored or corrosive vulnerable enemies. And since Cloud Kill primarily deals corrosive damage, one shot from your gun can pretty much annihilate the toughest loaders. And really at the end of the day, Cloud Kill costs only 1 skill point, so it's definitely worth having if you ask me. Otherwise, Maya has the advantage of having really low action skill cooldown, and skills like Ruin will auto-slag enemies for you. And when Ruin is combined with Cloud Kill, normal mode almost begins to play itself. though I suppose by that time you will be level 31 and you'll be well on your way into true Vault Hunter mode. Earlier on, Phase Lock is really great for sniping as it holds enemies still so you can perfectly line up those headshots. For experienced FPS players, the combination of the newly buffed Cloud Kill along with an appropriately leveled Jacob sniper rifle can really put the pain on enemies. Of all 6 Vault Hunters, I would go on a limb and say that Maya has the easiest time in normal mode. Now, the other 3 characters, Zero, Krieg, and Salvador, are probably the best playable characters in the game at higher levels. While I would say that they're a slight step up from GAIGE or AXTON, I think Maya tends to fare better in normal, while these characters tend to be much better later on. Of the 3, Krieg is probably the least gear dependent, while Salvador is less gear dependent than Zero is. Now, Zero's problem is that he tends to be fairly squishy when compared to some of the other characters in the game. But with that said, he is an extremely interesting character to play, both early and later on. And this is because Zero is great at melee, he's great at sniping, and he's also a really good generic gun type character as well. And I'd recommend that you pick up Zero's bore skill, as it's quite useful for dealing damage to enemies in clustered groups, or up against Hyperius. If you can, also try to obtain a Singularity Grenade and a high projectile count shotgun so you can get the most out of bore. As I said earlier, Salvador has the best action skill of all of the characters, since his dual wielding ability allows him to share passive weapon effects between weapons. Now, it generally depends, but dual wielding with Salvador can yield a superior damage boost while also allowing you to take advantage of the benefits that dual wielding 2 weapons would provide. As a general rule, it's a good idea to mix different weapon types together, and if you can find some, I highly recommend Hyperion shotguns on Salvador, as they tend to work quite well. And you'll also like Moxie weapons too. It's also important to mention that Salvador is the only character in the game with the ability to regenerate ammo. Salvador can do this both while he is gunzerking and provided he has a Hoarder class mod equipped. Now, I guess there's the Avenger, which allows you to regenerate SMG ammo, but Salvador is the only character that can regenerate all ammo types, with the exception of rocket launcher ammo. Salvador also has one of the most overpowered skills in the game, and Money Shot allows the final shot in a weapon's magazine to deal greatly increased damage, and when this is combined with a Rough Rider shield and Salvador's inconceivable skill, it's possible to chain Money Shots for ludicrous damage output. A combination of all these things, basically ammo regeneration, the ability to heal off of passive weapon effects or gain damage bonuses off of passive weapon effects, and Money Shot and Inconceivable, all of the stuff that I just mentioned, you can basically make Salvador almost unstoppable. As for Krieg, Krieg is a really good character, and I would definitely recommend him as he plays far differently than the other Vault Hunters. One of Krieg's advantages is that he came out after Ultimate Vault Hunter mode was released, so he is far better balanced for that difficulty than some of the other characters in the game like Axton or even Maya before she was rebalanced in late 2015. Krieg also has some skills that overhaul his BUZZAXE, like BUZZAXE Bombardier, or you have other skills like Light the Fuse, which overhaul Krieg's Fight for Your Life to where he moves really fast, and he throws sticks of dynamite, and when the timer runs out, he can explode, and if the explosion kills the enemy, you'll basically come back and get a second wind. Okay, so I guess I alluded to it earlier on in this video, but if I had to pick one particular class in Borderlands 2 for new people to play that are familiar with FPS games, I would have to pick Maya, and the main reason being that Maya has Cloud Kill, which just utterly eviscerates enemies on normal mode. However, it's also important to mention that Maya makes great use of SMGs, provided she is equipped with a CAT class mod. SMGs in Borderlands 2 tend to be very well balanced, and some of the best weapons in the game, which are like a lot of the unique and legendary SMGs in this game, are just amazing. And while you won't encounter all of these really early on, guns like the Sandhawk, the Tattler, the Bitch, Last Cow, Hellfire, and a few others are friggin' amazing. So I would say if you just picked up Borderlands 2 for the first time and you want a good character to play, go ahead and try Maya, and remember to spec for Cloud Kill once you hit level 16 or so. I'd say if you're experienced with FPS games, go ahead and play Maya for your first playthrough, and then after that, pick any of the other characters because they're all going to play a lot different. But alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and let me know. If you're a veteran to this game, who do you think is the best character for beginners? Do you think it's Maya? Do you think it's like Salvador, Zero, or Krieg? Or do you think it's maybe GAIGE or AXTON? Let me know in the comments, but otherwise, like this video if you liked it, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.